Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching recently. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth. This week, we're talking about food and horror, surgery and sex, a return trip to Hawkins, and Cary Grant's hilarious reactions. The movie.
Yeah, we are.
But first, happy Pride, everybody.
Yes.
This is our first episode in June. Happy Pride. I know that both Terry and I are doing a lot of stuff this month for Pride. Terry, what are you doing this month on your side of things?
Well, it's the start of Gaily Helpful again, and we're raising funds for the Transgender Law Center. It's going to be a little bit, I think, smaller than last year, but I think we will have enough articles to post every single day, at least one article, sometimes two. We're going to have a couple events going on through June. I know Chandler Bullock, the host of the Beauty of Horror podcast, is going to be doing a couple events, and hope sometime maybe in June he'll be on our show. Sometime June, maybe July, I can't remember when, but he's going to be on our show at some point in the near future. But yeah, he's doing some events for it, and like I said, we're trying to promote queer creators and also raise some money. Some muns? I was going to say some muns. We're going to raise some muns.
I was going with it.
I was writing about some buns. I don't know. What is even happening now? Please take this away from me. What are you doing in your side of the internet, Mary Beth, for Pride?
So for On Dread Central this month, we're running a ton of queer content, a ton of articles from writers that have been on the show, that haven't been on the show. We have really cool video content launching and going up. It's just really gay stuff all month.
It's gay.
It's gay. And letting people know that Dread Central will always publish queer content, not just during Pride Month, because now Dread Central is run by two queer people, myself and my managing editor, Josh Korngut. So we're just trying to use this month to really be like, hey, this is a really gay place now. And then hopefully I think people already know that kind of, but it's just like another way to be like, hello.
I mean, I posted an article on your site before we got to Pride, and people seem to like...
It's about AIDS.
Yeah.
And people absolutely loved it. So we're here, we're queer. Read our shit. Please and thank you. Support us.
We're here, we're queer. Read our shit.
Yeah. We just want all of the support from all of the people, because I know we're both working our asses off to spotlight some incredible voices and raise some big money this month. So, yay. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Gay. But anyway, what's gayer than food? No, that's not it. Food and horror.
Love that segue.
What's gayer than food?
That segue. Fellas, is it gay to eat food?
Fellas, is it gay to eat a popsicle?
The way I eat it is. Hey! No, anyway. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. I apologize sincerely for that. I don't even know where that came from. Exhaustion, maybe. Maybe that's what it is.
Don't you dare. I see your face. I'll do it.
Tiramisu is plotting. She's plotting.
All right, we got her. We got him, folks.
It was really tense for a moment.
It was very tense. There was a lot going on, but we got him. Anyway,
Okay.
food and horror.
Food and horror. So you saw this movie at I think it was Unnamed Footage Festival, and I tweeted about it, and the director / star of it reached out and got me a screener, and I was honestly, before this, I'll be perfectly honest, I was afraid I wasn't going to have much to talk about this week because last weekend, I just want to say, last weekend was wonderful for me because I watched nothing but queer stuff. I watched so much queer stuff, but I can't talk about it yet because it's all embargoed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will be talking about it over the next 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of really great queer stuff that is at festivals, that is launching on TV, a whole lot of stuff. But I watched all of that this weekend and I was like, I'm not going to have anything I can really talk about except for revisiting Stranger Things, which we'll talk about in a minute. I was like, but I managed to watch this movie, and it is the Andy Baker tape, and it's combining two of my favorite things, horror and food. I love food bloggers. I love food channels on YouTube, and as you know from our episode with Chelsea, and I also love horror. Shocker, I know. And so the Andy Baker tape is about, I mean, you talked about this on the show already, but it's basically a food blogger named Jeff Blake who discovers that he has a half brother named Andy Baker at the same time that he is trying to get a show going on the Food Network. He's a YouTuber and like a vlogger who goes around and eats different foods at different places, and he wants to get this show. And so it's about them, these two unlikely people kind of trying to figure out their relationship in terms of like familial relationships, but also trying to maybe work together. But there's also some horror aspects of it. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a food blogger meets creep, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I found it utterly delightful.
Isn't it delightful? Aren't the two of them just so good?
They have so
together?
much charisma together.
Right?
Like so much charisma together.
I'm so glad you liked it, because it's like, you know what? I think I described it as like, it's a pretty simple premise that you can kind of see where it's going, but it doesn't matter because the two of them together are so good. And like their relationship, I think, is what is really central to this, and like how they interact with each other. And it's incredible. I also think the ending is really cool. I think it goes in the place you think at first, and then it goes a little, and then it's like, I think it deviates from that a little bit too. But I'm so glad that you liked it. Aren't they both cutie patooties?
Okay, they are. And I know, I'm afraid that Brad's going to listen to this, but they are both incredibly attractive people.
Come on the show!
Yeah, I promise I won't make it creepy.
It's fine. It won't be weird. We won't make it weird.
No, but it's an utterly... I really was surprised at how lean, mean, and good it is. There's some really good kind of creepy moments in it, and I love some of the ways that it plays a little bit with things that we've seen before in found footage, shall I say.
Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, I say this every time, but I'm like, can you a found footage boy?
Girl, I know. I want to resist it so
It's only because I'm
bad,
watching them,
but...
and I'm like, no, I promise, this one you'll like. You will like this one. It won't make you watch the bad ones.
It's almost like, you go to like a Hollywood Video or Blockbuster back in the day, and you get to know the person that's working behind the desk, and they're like, here, this is one that you'll like. Where it's
literally like, me.
Uh-huh. You're just like, yeah, Terry, try this one. Here, this is one that...
precise. Don't look at
the ones over here.
Don't look at that one. No.
But this one I'm pushing in front of you right now, check this one out.
That's the one you want.
And
I'm so glad you watched it and liked it. And I think Terror Films is distributing it on digital.
Yeah.
I think they just announced it's coming to digital, I think at the end of the month.
Oh, is it really?
I don't know if it's end of the month, but I think it's soon. So it's coming out. So Andy Baker Tapes Bros, come hang out with us if you're listening to this.
Speaking of food and horror, let's talk about surgery and sex.
So I saw David Cronenberg's new film, Crimes of the Future. I saw it at a press screening, and folks, it's good. I will say. So the film takes place sometime in the future, and it takes place in this really intricate world that Cronenberg has built, where surgery is performance art. People no longer experience physical pain. Intimacy has shifted towards trying to find this access to pain. So Saul Tenson, who's played by Viggo Mortensen, is this performance artist whose body grows like spontaneous new organs. And he does performance art with his partner Caprice, who's played by Léa Seydoux. Was I say her name? And she will surgically removes his organs as performance art in front of people. And like, he's known for this. And meanwhile, they're living in this world where an organ registry is trying to keep track of who is growing spontaneous organs to track human evolution and see if humans are evolving into something different now.
Oh.
And there's all this kind of comes together into this weird mishmash of like conspiracy and surgery as performance art, but also this beautiful movie about being an artist, but also being trapped in your own body and trying to reclaim agency over your body when it's out of control. Trying to adapt to the changing environment. Like, there's a lot going on here. Very Cronenberg, like, not everything works together. I think I find this with Cronenberg a lot, and I still love Cronenberg, but I think that he sometimes is a little bit too ambitious with his movies, and there are some threads that sometimes are just, like, not dropped, but, like, kind of let to droop a little bit more than others.
Okay.
And this happens here, but that didn't take away necessarily a lot for me. It's because he makes such a beautiful world here that, like, you want more information. Because it's so similar yet foreign. Everything is kind of dilapidated and rusty and gross. But then we're working, by we, I mean these characters are working with these, like, incredibly sensitive medical devices. So you have this very interesting tension between, like, completely completely, like, rundown aesthetics versus surgery, and how the idea of aesthetics has shifted completely. And in terms of like what we're interested in, what is sexual, what is taboo, what isn't. And it's also a kind of like a noir detective movie. Viggo Mortensen looks like a Jedi. He wears like a black hood and then cover things over his face the whole time. He has no eyebrows. Never really explained why he looks like this the whole time, because he just looks like some kind of Jedi. I could not stop giggling because I was like, he looks so silly. But this movie's also a little bit sillier than I expected in a dry way that was actually kind of interesting, that like this was not a world that was being taken like totally seriously, and there's a little bit more kind of playfulness with what's going on in terms of like Viggo Mortensen's character realizing his age and his being aware of his own body, and there's just some really interesting jokes going on here that I wasn't expecting that actually work really well. And I was trying to think of a comparison of movies that, like, if people really want to know, like, where this falls in, like, the Cronenbergian filmography, it reminds me a lot of Dead Ringers, where there isn't a lot of gore. A lot of it's, like, internal body horror. So, like, there are things going on inside of your body, but there isn't a lot of goop. Like, there are obviously shots of people getting surgery that are pretty graphic, but it's body horror to me in a really horrific way, in that your body is biologically rejecting you, and it's how your body is trying to cope, how you yourself are trying to cope with a body that doesn't seem to want you to be alive.
Oh, wow. And
that to me is pretty scary, I think, as I'm getting older and as, you know, things happening in life and stuff. There's a lot more horror that isn't gory, but more just making you very aware of your physical body and what it means to have a physical body, which I thought was really interesting. I think it's body horror done in a very different way that is more akin to Dead Ringers. Don't go into it expecting, like, The Fly or anything like that. It's not that gory, which isn't a bad thing. It's not. Right. It's not the huge, like, body horror, like, goopy masterpiece. But it's much more subdued, but I think it's good. I like that. I did see a lot of the design of some of the, like, these, like, surgery pods and stuff very much look like he took from his son.
Oh.
From Possessor.
Yeah.
It
was giving me a Possessor vibe, honestly, and some of, like, maybe a little bit more rusty.
It's got, like, Possessor-ish vibes. It's not as, like, complicated. It is I don't know. They have, like, they feel like they would exist in a similar universe. Like, Possessor is what happened before. It almost feels like. It feels like something went wrong. But I've really, really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure at first. So I was like, where is this going? And then it sold me. It's weird. It's sweet, which was bizarre.
That's not the word I expected to come out of your mouth.
No, it wasn't either. Yeah, it's really weird. Very Cronenberg. Not as transgressive as I think it could have been, but that's okay. That's okay. I think people are going to think it is. I just don't think it's that transgressive. It could have been so much more. But that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying from my personal standpoint, it could have gone a lot weirder. It gets really weird, but it felt to me like this was Cronenberg trying to be weird without it going to, like, crash level territory of, like, fucking and car accidents. Like, there's one scene, and it's in the trailer, where Lea Seydoux is, like, licking an incision. And, like, they could have done more of that. They didn't, which was, like, a slight bummer, but I guess I get it. I wanted people to lick more incisions. Put your tongue in that laceration immediately.
Oh.
That's just the worst thing I've ever said, I think. And I've said some bad shit, and that was pretty gross. Ooh, paper... Never mind.
I have so many images in my head. Well, I'm really... Okay, so... No, I want to linger in this a little bit longer.
I just want to stew in it.
Just stew in it. Like, just open that wound and jump in there.
That was disgusting. I'm so sorry. There are people who are going to watch this movie and probably discover something about themselves. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I think this does present... Oh, it presents surgery in, like, almost a BDSM play setting, where there are people in play scenes and people are observing and walking around and jumping in and being a part of them. So it is presented as a very, like, group sex situation. It's not just art. It is sex. Group sex. Which I thought was really cool.
I'm excited to see it. I'm hoping to hopefully see it this weekend. I don't know. We'll see if I'm able to. As I've said on the podcast before, I'm not very familiar with Cronenberg's work. This is a cue to Joe, if you're listening, to ping me again about doing that thing that we've been talking about, because but yeah, to ping me, Joe, because I it's not that I don't want to watch his stuff, it's that, like, I feel like with the amount of stuff that we have to watch, I have to have, like, sometimes a reason, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. A lot of the movies I watch nowadays are because I have to watch them, which
it sounds worse than it actually is. Like, it's a good thing, but it's like,
good.
There's a lot of times where it's just, there's only a certain amount of hours in a day, and unless, it's really hard. It's really hard to schedule it.
So, but you've seen The Brood.
I've seen The Brood.
Because we talked about The Brood.
And I've seen The Fly.
And you've seen The Fly.
And
I haven't seen Dead Ringers.
No. I think I've seen Eastern Promises or History of Violence, whichever one has Viggo Mortensen naked fighting people in a bathhouse.
Eastern Promises.
I've seen that one, and it was only because of that scene. Sorry about it. So
those are obviously from his kind of phase where he is not in the horror, really in the horror scene anymore. But it's got Brood vibes, I think, too.
Okay.
I was thinking about that too, in terms of, like, there isn't a lot of gore, but there's a lot of weird shit going on.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I'm glad that I liked it. I was watching it, I'm like, damn it, am I just going to like all the movies I see, and I'm going to like a hack where I'm just like, the movie's good. I love all the movies. But so, you returned to Hawkins.
I did.
How was it?
Okay, I don't want to, like, linger on it because we talked about it last week, and I don't have a whole lot new to say, except I really enjoyed it. For the most part, without getting in, I still don't think I think it's too early to really talk spoilers. Maybe once the entire season is out, we can really kind of dig into spoiler chat about it if we want to. I will say that some of the stuff with 11 kind of bored me this season.
That is 100% the most boring to me, too.
Like it comes together in the end of this in an interesting way that I kind of saw coming.
Yeah.
From almost the very beginning, but like I thought it was, it's too passive. I didn't, this far into the show, I didn't want to have the storyline that we got.
I agree. I'm like, we've done this too many times with her. I think it's just getting too repetitive.
So that annoyed me. I was a little sad that, well, I'm gonna talk about this character in particular, but I was really sad about the storyline involving the people outside of Hawkins, Will, his brother that I'm totally blanking the name on, and Mike. They're sort of like vanish. And Argyle, who I've seen like mixed reaction to, but I love him.
I thought he was great.
And I mean, shout out to Eddie, the guy that plays Eddie. I think Eddie is the star of this season. I loved him so much from the very beginning. He got on my nerves at first, I will say. Oh, really? Oh, I loved him from the very beginning.
I ended up liking him, but I was like, oh, God. I was like, are they really trying to make someone the new Billy? And I'm like, okay, they got me. They got me.
But, okay, so one of the reasons I wanted to bring this show up, for one reason, I was afraid it was going to be the only thing I was going to be able to talk about this week. But for two...
Is one of them about a boy with a really bad bowl cut?
Okay. You know, on one hand, like, they are doing my boy dirty with that hairstyle. But on the other hand, my hair was also atrocious in the 80s and early 90s.
I mean, fair enough.
I really hope, like, it's very hard to talk about this season because it's not done yet, right? I'm annoyed that this is like, I've said this on Twitter. I got a lot of people agreeing and a lot of people who were vehemently against this. I think this should have been a weekly show. It makes it very difficult to talk about when it's not a weekly show. It's very difficult to be like, because at this point I'm talking to my coworkers and I'm like, what are you watching? I'm on episode 2. I'm like, okay, I don't remember what that was. So I don't know what I cannot talk about.
At the same goddamn time. They all bleed together for me.
There's no way to have a discourse here. In terms of this season, and it's like we have to wait 5 weeks for the final 2 episodes when they could have been.
Wouldn't have it just made more? Yeah, like have it the 7 weeks and then it'll be ready. Like I'm assuming because things weren't finished,
right?
Which fucking fine, but just like.
So I feel like that was a bad mistake, and it's also making me really irritated about the way that they are handling Will's character, because dude is obviously gay. If he's not, then the show is, I don't know what the show is doing, because he is literally...
I don't know what the show is doing.
He's literally introduced the season with... the first episode is a hero's... They have to make like a presentation of their personal hero, and he is carrying around Alan Turing. And I'm sorry, yes, he is a computer scientist. Yes, people that have studied computer scientists, they probably. But if you're putting it in a movie, or whatever, you are talking about it because that character is gay and he was prosecuted for being gay. That is why you're having it. It is like the biggest queer coding of ever. He might as well be like walking with his male friend going antique shopping at this point. Like this character, they are just throwing in all of the kind of queer coding stuff. And I'm okay with them not addressing his sexuality yet, because I feel that what I see in that character, I see in me when I was a kid. Like I was the D&D nerd. I was the one that had a lot of friends that at that age, guy friends that would hang out all the time, stay up till 3 a.m. playing Dungeons and Dragons on the weekends. And then they started to realize girls. And so his reaction last season about like, why isn't this enough? Like really resonated with me. And so I was like, gosh, I want to see what they're going to do with this character. And then to have them be forced to maybe talk about like, I feel like they never really address it or blatantly say how Will is. The actor that's playing Will says in an interview with Variety. I think that's the beauty of it, that it's up to the audience's interpretation. Fuck that noise. I am sorry. We have, as a queer person, we have been queer baited way too much in the entertainment industry to have this being presented to us. So I'm a little irritated. And I don't know, again, it's very difficult because it could be that they're trying to keep under wraps that he is going to have a big emotional coming out in the next 2 episodes. Like, that is a big possibility. But it is introduced.
That painting he keeps carrying around.
Right.
That, like, yep.
It's introduced. I'm hoping it's going to pay it off, and they're just trying to play coy at this point. But I'm going to be perfectly honest. This dialogue is the same kind of shit we have heard from Teen Wolf, that we have heard in, Star Wars. Where the actors are like,
it's like Supernatural too.
We want them to be, like there's so much of this kind of queer coding stuff that has been fed particularly over the last 20 years. I mean, you can probably go back further, but the last 20 years has become problematic, to say the very least. And I am tired of when they say it's left up to interpretation. No, fuck that noise. Anyway, getting off my soapbox, I'm angry, but I like the season other than that.
No, I agree with you. It's just, we're just continuing to do this whole, like, queer baiting situation. And it's like, I thought we've learned our lesson here with, like, queer baiting and, like, making it seem like the characters are great, but saying, oh, but it's up for your interpretation. I was like, no, we are past the point of interpretation. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the year of our Lord 2022. And, like, don't tease it as obviously if you're not going to, like, make it happen in the first 7 episodes. You know what? Like, because of course they're going to get those questions and interviews. And I'm curious. I feel like that kid was probably like, oh, shit. What? Yeah. Well, it was either oh shit or he was coached to say that. Exactly. Either one. And, like, I wish that he had, if he had lots of things. 1, if he had been coached, fuck you. And 2, if you hadn't been coached, buddy, I wish they had prepared you to be asked questions about playing a queer character. Because, like, we don't really, well, because we have Robin. We have our resident queer character, Robin, now. But we need more. And, like you said, Alan Turing, like, come on. You don't just pick Alan Turing. No. You don't just pick it. Come on. No. We're not stupid. Maybe in the real world you would, but, like, in cinema, in any kind of entertainment industry, that is, like... When you can pick whatever you want to have whatever meaning. So I'm angry, and I don't know if I should be angry or not, because, again, this isn't a weekly show. This isn't something... We have to wait. We have to wait until July... whenever, in order to get an answer to this question, hopefully, whether they're doing it or not. And that, I think, is fucking annoying, because, like, I can't take the season as a whole, and so anything that I'm saying now could be upset over the last 2 episodes. But again, it's the way that they are framing this conversation, and the way that these words that are being used is very triggering. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I think the rollout schedule for this has been very bizarre, and I think not... Again, unless something happens in Volume 2 that, like, makes total sense, but there's almost nothing that I can think of that will make... Well, and I was just thinking about, like, do you remember how, like, everyone every week was chatting about Yellow Jackets? Like, that held cultural dominance for the entire episode run of that season, because it was... Every episode, there was something new to talk about. We can't have that conversation here. But I also feel like I remember, this is my thing too, because, like, when binge watching, you're not paying full attention, I feel like, all the time either. And I feel like with the weekly stuff, I'm like, okay, I only have 1 hour to do this. I'll just pay attention for this hour, and I'll absorb it all and, like, think about it. And then I can, like, better enjoy. You can come online and talk with people about it. You can formulate your ideas. And besides, these episodes are so long now. Oh, they're so long. And I feel like I don't see as many people talking about Stranger Things now, because I feel like it's so hard to talk. Like, what can we talk about? Because... No one's at the same place. No one's at the same place. And you don't want to be that asshole that ruins something because you binged it over this season, the weekend, and no one else did. Like, you don't want to be that asshole. And, like, you also don't, like you said, you don't want to be that asshole. It's like, oh, I don't like this at all, and it all resolves in the second volume. And you're like, this could have been easily avoided. But then again, as critics, I think it's very fair for us to criticize, like, how they rolled it out and, like, pointing at why, like, hey, that's maybe not the strategy for something like this. Right. Netflix just keeps fucking kicking themselves in the butt, like, over and over again. They keep making these weird choices, but I'm glad you liked it. At least they renewed Heartstopper. That's all I care about at this point. True. I mean, I'm excited for Volume 2. I think it's setting up for some cool shit. It is. It's setting up for a very epic finale, and I'm excited for that. Yeah.
But
Get the Nightmare on Elm Street vibes though. See what I
oh my
mean?
god,
Very Freddy.
The very first episode
Freddy.
is like total Freddy.
Yeah.
The way that they take the scene of Chrissy and all of a sudden it's like, it's Tina, not as like bloody, but it's Tina from Nightmare on Elm Street up on the ceiling getting her bones cracked in. It's fantastic, and I literally gasped when her eyes get like pushed into her head. I was like, I
gasped. I was
that
like,
was surprising.
Oh, okay, wow, like we really are fucking people up, teenagers up, like, but yeah.
But anyway, enough about me bitching about sexuality and Stranger Things. Let's talk about someone else who was potentially queer in real life.
Yes.
And let's talk about Arsenic and Old Lace, Mary Beth. What did you think about this movie?
The first thing I was going to be like, wasn't Cary Grant rumored to be gay?
Oh, yeah.
So that was my first question. This is another situation of where this was funnier than scary. It's interesting to watch the pendulum kind of swinging back and forth with these. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. It's just very funny to go from like Abbott and Costello is very slapstick and silly to the old dark house is much more dry to this, which I think it's like a little bit more in the center though. I think there are still some like really tense, creepy fucking moments, especially with the brother with the surgery.
When he comes to the house.
Oh, I was like,
it's so drenched in shadows.
But am I watching the same movie? Because it's kind of silly. Like you've got Cary Grant being like, okay, well, hold on. So in this movie, Cary Grant plays Mortimer Brewster.
What a name.
What a name. And Mortimer Brewster is a drama critic, which is my favorite thing of all time. Mortimer Brewster, played by Cary Grant. He is a drama critic who has famously eschewed the concept of marriage. I will never get married. I'll be a bachelor forever. And then he falls in love. And he's like, no, people cannot understand, will never understand or can't know that I've given up my bachelor ways for the love of my life. And she also happens to be the daughter of a pastor. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he's a pastor.
But then he gets married. He makes a quick trip home to the house in Brooklyn, which is, I love that what Brooklyn is in this movie versus what we know of Brooklyn now. But he goes back to Brooklyn to where his two aunts live. They raised him.
And they live next to a cemetery. Like their yard is pretty much a cemetery. And I love that.
And they're so cute and they're so sweet. And they kill old men. They put them out of their misery. They give him some arsenic and they put a room for rent sign and they say, come on in. Lonely man comes in. They poison his wine. Oh, and they also taking care of, is it Mortimer's brother?
Mortimer's brother,
who thinks he is Teddy Roosevelt, who they are telling that there are just victims of the yellow fever in their base.
Which is Panama. Which is the Panama Canal.
And then it all gets crazy when Mortimer's other brother shows up, who actually is a bad guy. And it all just goes nuts.
His brother, who's a bad guy, who also has a doctor friend played by Peter Lorre, fantastic, as Dr. Einstein, who has carved up his face enough that everyone keeps thinking that Jonathan is Boris Karloff because his face looks like Frankenstein, and it's a hilarious gag. I think it probably would have been even more hilarious when this came out in terms of like being so close to, because this came out in 43. So this is like around that same time, a decade removed from when from the Universal monster Frankenstein came out, and everyone keeps confusing him, and it's just perfect.
The guy who played Jonathan, the serial killer brother, Raymond Massey, he is in Old Dark House. He's the husband.
Oh shit, was he really?
Yeah, he was Philip Waverton. So yeah, he's the husband to Margaret and the friend to our
See, that even makes more sense too, because
the jokes now make even more sense.
That's hilarious. I didn't even realize that.
I didn't until just now when I checked. Wow. That is even funnier.
But I mean, the reason why this movie I think works is because Cary Grant, his facial expressions and his reactions to things, I feel like when we look at like Jim Carrey, and like, yes, he has exaggerated facial expressions, but I feel like he is taking on a more exaggerated form of what Cary Grant does. Cary Grant's reaction to like everything that's happening around him is one of like just like absolute panic and like, what am I doing here? How am I going to react to this? Like when he opens up the window seat and finds a dead body and his reaction to that, or when he finds out that like his aunts are like, yeah, they're very cavalier about, yeah, we poisoned him and his body's over there and it's going to be buried in our basement. His like reaction to it, it's so funny because it's taking something that seems like, it's the dichotomy of them being so nonchalant about it and him like being like in the real world of like, oh my God, how am I going to solve this so that they don't get put in jail?
And he just like, he can't, oh, this is like classic man trying to juggle 4,000 things at once to make everything comes together and ends up dropping it all at one time. Because he's like trying to get his brother committed at one point and also like fix all of the problems. And it's, yeah.
Plus, he has a nice butt. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a scene where like he falls over the chair and it's like butt central, and I was like, oh,
that's my news website, Butt Central.
Oh my God.
I do have to share a very fun fact I learned about Cary Grant while I was researching. Did you know that Cary Grant did a lot of LSD?
I did. I saw that on Wikipedia.
I did. So I don't really know much about Cary Grant. One, I know he's very attractive. Like he is like that quintessential attractive, like 1940s man. Like there is absolutely no denying like what he is like that time period. I knew that he was potentially queer, but I did not know that this man started doing LSD in the 50s before it was popular.
Yep.
And he was taking it because his wife was really into psychoanalysis. So then, like, he started taking LSD to, like, work on his problems. And I was like, wow, ahead of your time there, my dude. Processing your trauma with LSD in the 50s? Honestly? Good for you.
Yeah.
But then he did say later, taking LSD was an utterly foolish thing to do, but I was a self-opinionated bore, hiding all kinds of layers and defenses, hypocrisy and vanity. I had to get rid of them and wipe the slate clean. Maybe he found out he was gay when he was doing LSD, or like he came to terms with it during just a decade of doing acid.
I feel like this is one of those cases where you have Hollywood trying to maybe create an image. I mean, we see that even now today, right? And so, like, Cary Grant had to have this image where he was not allowed to be photographed smoking, despite the fact that he was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. They were trying to create such a persona around him that I do wonder if it's kind of why the queer thing kind of got bulldozed over and why he went through so many marriages and spent a good 12 years on and off living with an actor, Randolph Scott. And I think is one of those cases where Hollywood were just trying to bulldoze over the fact that maybe he liked the company of both men and women. I mean,
Cary Grant, please be my bisexual hero.
I mean, like, the photograph that they use at the top of Wikipedia is definitely bi-curious.
But also, like, isn't it absolutely insane, like, how people are still doing this and grooming people to have a certain celebrity appeal? Like, this happens with, like, I swear to, I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying. That's definitely bi-curious.
You don't like to at least kind of look at a man's butt? I mean, come on. But, like, this happens with K-pop stars, where they, like, can't be seen, people can't know they've got a boyfriend, a partner, they can't be gay, they can't have tattoos, like, they can't have certain things because it sullies their image and their marketability as a product and not as a person. Yep. And, like, I know we say a lot of things now about how bad celebrity is and, like, celebrity worship, but I think it was just as bad. We just have more technology to do it at, like, a creepier level, but, like, I do think it's always been bad. Not that anyone's telling me that's not, but it's so interesting to, like, hear that story and be like, oh no, we've always just treated celebrities like pieces of meat and, like, have never given them any respect as human beings.
Yeah, well, especially at that time, like, studios owned people. Like, you worked for a studio and you only made movies for that studio. Like, they owned him. They owned his image. They owned everything about him because they were the ones paying the bill. And yeah, I mean, he made a lot of money out of it, but he basically worked for a studio. Like, that is the way actors worked back then. Was you got tied, and now I mean you see where like people tie up like in contracts and stuff, but at that point in time, it was like
Marvel who?
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I just also this movie breaks the fourth wall a few times, and I love that. I love that in 1940s we're having like fourth wall breaks where he's looking at the camera and he's looking directly at us, or like when he's discussing about like a guy getting tied up as the point is like he's secretly going to be tied up and he's like talking about it as like dramatic irony. Like I love that there's these meta moments and these fourth wall breaks in a movie from 1943. I love it.
I know. And it's like really cool to see these really smart movies from that time that show like movies have always been pretty fucking smart and doing some really, really interesting, funny stuff, playing with form and comedy and expectation. And I kept thinking about how this is a play, right?
Yeah.
This was adapted from a play and how much I really now want to see it live. I feel like they performed it at my high school and I never saw it when they did it because I feel like it's pretty common.
It is.
To do the play in high school. Like it's not new, but it's done really well in this movie.
Yeah. And I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, this without really realizing it is very easily a play. Like it's one location. It's like you see one side of the house. Like you don't need anything else other than that one frame of the house, the upstairs and the downstairs and the basement, without even going in those floors. And I love that. Yeah,
I liked it a lot. That's not Agatha Christie, everybody. But then, so Terry, next week, what is next up for horror comedies?
All right, so next week we are going to the year 1959 to watch Roger Corman's A Bucket of Blood, which... I mean, the synopsis for this movie is a dim-witted busboy finds acclaim as an artist for a plaster-covered dead cat that is mistaken as a skillful statuette. The desire for praise soon leads to an increasingly deadly series of works. And it has Dick Miller in it.
I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, me too. But who are we talking to on Monday, Mary Beth?
On Monday, we are chatting with writer, actor, and producer Devin Doss, whose film Keeping Company is coming to digital on Tuesday, June 7th. And we talked to him about a movie that I absolutely hated as a child, purely due to trauma. Star vehicle for Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin, The Good Son.
Yeah.
Which does not hold up, everybody. It's so cheesy, but I still hated it.
This was a fun conversation. Devin is he's great.
He is a sweetheart.
And the movie Keeping Company is when we scheduled this, I had been one of the only ones that had seen it, but afterwards Mary Beth was like, this movie is great. This movie is Scarred for Life approved. Keeping Company.
It's Scarred for Life approved. Put it on the poster.
It's so good.
It's Scarred for Life approved. It's so good. It's a horror comedy, but like dark horror comedy and like gross horror comedy. It's pretty vicious. And I'm excited for people to be able to watch it because it's real good.
It is really good. And so you can listen to the episode on Monday and then see it on Tuesday.
Yeah. So everyone, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Did you watch something that we watched and have thoughts? Do you have horror comedy suggestions for us? Please send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And if you're able to, can you please donate to Gaily Helpful? Because I'd love to raise some money for the Trans Law Center. Thank you.
Donate to Gaily Helpful. It's Pride. We're going to keep saying it all month, so might as well do it now. But we're not going to stop talking about it, so get used to it. Anyway, thanks Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Please stay safe out there. Please be kind to each other. Please take care of each other. But most of all, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.